Hey, how's it going? How is it going? Hope you're having a good day. Hey, Kathy, how's it going today? I saw your messages. Yeah, I've been getting some sleep, but tomorrow I have a big day with the kids for some school stuff. It's an all-day event, and we're gonna be getting up really early. All right, let's see. We got people a minute to come in. There's been a lot of suppression of news. So all the information that's shared around, people are having to go to Telegram and places like that to to get their news. X is definitely suppressing it. And people are getting in trouble. They're getting accounts taken down. It's pretty rough. I'll do my little intro for YouTube. Welcome to the live stream. I will be covering updates on the war with Iran that has spread to other countries. We'll also do live monitoring of any situations as they arise. Hit that like on the way in. It helps the algorithm and is the best way to support creators like us. If you want to support in other ways, you can always become a channel member, pick some merch, buy affiliate products on my Amazon storefront, or you can donate. All the links are in the description of the video. And thank you for all that serve in the military. So I will start off with our thanks, Ohio Nanny, for becoming a member. Much appreciated. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with kind of the headlines, and then we'll go into our typical X. I know a lot of people enjoy seeing the X post because they don't have X accounts, and I think it's important. But like I said, they're really starting to throttle that content. And as we'll see, there's some people who are basically getting kicked out of X in certain countries. So U.S. and Israel ramped up the strikes today. Defense Secretary Hegseth says firepower over Iran is about to surge dramatically. So we heard that before. And I would say based on the B-52s, that's probably true. I would say they backed it up. And they're moving to the next phase, whatever that means. They've already been hitting bunkers. And they've already, as far as they say, basically taken out the Navy and the Air Force. Iranian deaths supposedly are topping 1,230. It's not official, but it looks like it's going to be official that the U.S. Investigated that missile strike on the girls' school in Iran. Let me turn down that source here really quick. And it does look like it was possibly a U.S. strike. So, not good. Not good at all. I don't think it was on purpose. At least that's what it's looking like. Iran fired more missiles drawn to the Gulf states, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, explosions and debris. And based on Lebanon attacks, Cassia with Daily Fredo was saying that she could hear the attacks from from where she's at. And she is over here in Cyprus. So Lebanon's getting hit. I don't know. I hope you can you see this? All right. Let me see. Maybe this will be better. Okay. Yeah, so Lebanon's here. And I think they're about maybe 250 miles away or something like that. And they're saying they can hear what's going on in Lebanon from Cyprus. So things are still not going well over there in that area. And she's obviously okay since she's giving updates, but not looking good. Conflict spills over. Israel strikes Hezbollah stronghold in Beirut. U.S. sinks Iranian warship. I believe one was also sank with a torpedo from a sub. And then kind of one of the big stories of the day, and this is interesting. So Azerbaijan, a new front opened. So Iranian drones are slamming the exclaves and airport terminals were damaged. It was, again, near a school. There was 2 to 4 people injured. I don't see any deaths from that near strike, but it seems like there's a pattern where they're putting these schools very close to these bases. And I'm not sure if that's like a thing, like maybe there's cheaper real estate or something, but that does seem to be a pattern now that we're starting to see. But like I said, there were 2 to 4 injured, but there were no deaths reported. And the president calls it unprovoked terror, puts military on the highest readiness, and vows retaliation. Turkey condemns the attack, and Azerbaijan is now helping with mass evacuations from Iran. As far as like the global effect, oil prices spiked So it's up 12 to 15%. And the Strait of Hormuz, there were lots of reports initially that were saying that they were going to close the, Iran said we're going to close it. And it looked like it was closed. Now they're saying they're not going to close it yet, but they have sunk a few tankers. So they have used drones, underwater drones, and they go just like a torpedo. They get next to the hull, they explode and sink the ship. And there's been at least a couple. At least I think there's at least 2 confirmed. Might be more than that. So very strange situation. I know they said that China could pass through, and the U.S. said they were trying to get insurance for these tankers going through there. And I have not heard that was approved. And they did say they would protect anyone who was going through there, but I don't think we'll have the resources, unfortunately. Stocks are tumbling on inflation fears. Shipping freight rates skyrocketed. There is some analysts are saying that they fear there's going to be an inflation spike and then higher gas prices, which everyone saw coming, right? We assume that if you're attacking somewhere that exports oil, then there's probably going to be some issues with the pricing. As far as displacement, it looks like there's about 300,000 people displaced, and there are still some issues with people getting flights. But like we saw yesterday, there are some services that are going in. Some are paid, and then other ones are volunteer, and then you just donate, and that's how they're funded to go in and take people out. But it's all still going. Same stuff's happening, but there's a lot more censoring of this stuff. A lot. So just to find the information that I did was basically took me all day. And, day 1, day 2, we had tons of explosions. We had a bunch of stuff going on, lots of footage. And now it's to the point where someone said sold my stocks at a good time. Yeah, I guess if you're into that stuff, I don't know. I don't mess with stocks too much besides like 401k or whatever, but I have one friend who day trades, and he does amazing. He can pay all of his bills just day trading, and I don't think he's really worked a day in his life. Moon Goddess, I hope you're feeling better. Yeah, so these underwater drones, they're actually, there's a very close similarity between Ukraine and Iran. So they both have these like Shahed-style drones, and Ukraine has a lot of other drones too, but they both have these underwater drones. So people are saying they're almost seeming like they're mirroring each other. And Zelensky's supposed to be getting involved now, supposedly, because obviously they have a ton of, invaluable experience dealing with drones and asymmetric warfare. So, and he's talking crap, of course. You have to. He's talking crap to Trump, saying, when I asked for Patriot missile batteries, you were giving me a hard time, and now you guys need help over there. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, Leaf Cat, how's it going? All right, so let's go ahead and get into... We have all of our monitoring set up. There's nothing major that I see right now that's changed. So you have, obviously, Iran's getting carpet bombed. The B-52s have been out there for sure. And there's some videos that we'll look at to have that basically confirmed. And then on flight radar, the strangest thing I've seen today so far is this drone. So this is a MQ-9B, and as you can see, actually we'll switch to Intel. As you can see, it's been very busy. I don't know, I can't count how many loops there are. There's too many, but it's done several. And some people think that maybe it's for recon, and maybe it has some kind of radar to sense when there's missiles and stuff being launched that way, or drones incoming. But it's been here basically, when did that start? So it's been up for about at least 3 hours. Probably, 4 hours. And, if that is the purpose, to protect, then that's great. There's also been this plane here doing a similar pattern. The thing that's strange about this one is this one's for refueling and transferring, like airlifting. So I'm not sure what it's doing. I don't know why. Typically, this pattern you would see with like with a Poseidon that looks for submarines, but this one does not do that. At least it typically doesn't. But I mean, you're talking about, are they just trying to get all the fuel out? Is it old fuel or something? I don't know. But you can see, I mean, this has been going for several hours. So probably, 50, 100 loops, maybe more. So very interesting. And it's at about 26,000 feet. But overall, it's been pretty quiet. Besides that, I have not seen refuelers, but typically when they're refueling, their transponders turned off. So they might be refueling as we speak, but there's a couple of them just hanging out. You got some Globemasters. There's a couple, I saw a couple Pegasus as well, refuelers, but kind of quiet. At least what we can see is kind of quiet. And let's go ahead and check over. I want to make sure there's no sub-hunters happening over here around the U.S. Let's see. No, we got tankers, airlift. I'm not really seeing any. There's nothing out here. So as of right now, I don't see any. So that's, you know, none is better than some in this case. The less we see, the better. But overall, not too crazy. Last couple of days, you know, we saw like the parade of stratotankers coming across to refuel. And we didn't see that. Hasn't been happening recently. I still want to find out what happened with that drone down here, but I'll let that go for now. And then shipping, same thing. You know, we had some ships get hit by underwater drones. We have some movement. China's kind of going in and out. And there's some tanker news that we'll get to, but overall still, you know, not quite as congested. It doesn't seem as it was a couple of days ago. Like we had huge groups that were just like posted up over here. So that's a good sign at this point. So the pizza index, which is not anything official for anyone that's new to this, this is basic. Sorry, I heard someone coughing. But this is basically like it's more for fun. But what they typically see is if these pizza numbers are high, like right now it's nominal, close, and quiet. But, you know, just earlier, a couple were like 800%, 350% more than usual. And when you start to see that, the idea is that the Pentagon and other places surrounding there, the government buildings, people are working late and they're ordering pizza. So that's kind of a sign, like an unofficial sign, that things are getting worse, or they're like in the war room or something similar is happening. As far as overall radiation, nothing major here either. This is the same 3 that we had yesterday that were elevated, and in Europe, it's pretty quiet. So nothing major going on. And I hope it stays that way. It's never fun to mess with radiation and nuclear. All right, let's go ahead and jump into all of our stuff for the day. And I'll go full screen over here. We'll do, all right. Make that a little bit bigger for you. So, if you can, hit that like. Obviously, makes YouTube happy. I appreciate you guys being here. And I do have to get up very early in the morning. So I'm going to do these updates, and then I'll monitor probably for a little bit less than usual. I usually go until around about midnight-ish. But I'm not sure if I'll go quite that late tonight. If something happens, I will. But if it's quiet, then I'll probably turn in a little bit early. All right, so this is from Cassia. So, and actually we can go to her account real quick. So she's saying she can hear continuous explosions in Beirut from Cyprus. And again, you know, she's not too far away, 260 kilometers. And she's saying it's madness. And, you know, there's explosions in the city. And I assume she's been able to hear this for a couple of days now. And it's obviously stressing people out a lot because there's stuff that's coming in. And it was affecting her so much that she actually didn't do an episode. So if you are a supporter of hers, and even if you're not, you should go over and subscribe and show her some love. She does some great content on the Charlie Kirk and some of that kind of stuff, you know, like the investigatory type of things. But she said Beirut was told to evacuate, and Israel said they'll turn it into a second Gaza, allegedly. So they're wanting to level it, according to some sources that she's referencing. The Qatari Ministry of Defense reports that they intercepted an Iranian drone en route to Al Udeid, So again, Qatar is being attacked, but luckily this time they got it, but they've already been hit. So the attacks continue on the allies, and that's obviously going to lead to escalation, but not just against Iran. Strangely enough, there's infighting now. Surprise, surprise. Hello. Let's see. Tilly, I love it. Oh, hey. Hey, Rumblers. How's it going? We have a couple of Rumblers in here as well. But, yeah, I mean, the way this is set up right now, there's several people that are going against each other within the allies and NATO, and specifically Spain is not making President Trump happy. And they're kind of going back and forth. But let's see. Someone's saying, answer Matt. What's the question? What is the question? Moon Goddess says her mom loves Cassia. Hit that like. I don't see what question. Oh, you're asking if our best allies or our greatest ally has something on Trump. I would say it's probably pretty likely. I think they probably have something on everyone everywhere. You know, when you have that kind of surveillance and that type of ability to hack, and you're so integrated into all the defense and security and, you know, websites and applications and everything else. I mean, they have eyes on everything at all times. Yes, Brandy and Billy have been reunited. Brandy's back home. All right. South Korea has warned, and I didn't see this coming, to be honest, that the war could disrupt the supply of materials for microchip production. So that's something that, you know, this war is already starting to spill over into economics and trade and everything else. And we're only, a weekend? So this is going to be a major issue, I think, as things go. And this is the official report. U.S. investigation indicates likelihood of U.S. responsibility for the attack on the school. And we'll see some other stuff that they kind of, it looks like the U.S. has already investigated, or they have a very strong investigation going that points that direction. So, let's see. Germany Air Force by Europe. We can look at that here in a minute. So this is Trump. He's talking about Cuba. So we already know that he went into Venezuela. He is now in Iran, and he went to maybe El Mencho. Maybe we had something to do with that. I'm not sure. But this is him talking about Cuba.
But what's happening with Cuba is amazing, and we think that we want to finish this one first, but that will be just a question of time before you and a lot of unbelievable people are going to be going back to Cuba. Hopefully not to stay. We want you back, and we don't want to lose you. We don't want to make it so nice that they stay. But some people probably do want to stay. They love Cuba so much. I hear it all the time. That was another one that wasn't supposed to happen. Venezuela is going great. It's been stabilized. We have a wonderful person as your president-elect, Delcy Rodriguez, and she and her staff have been doing a fantastic job working with us. We've taken out hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, and it's going to Houston and various other places where it's being refined, and we're sending them back far more money than they've made in many years, and actually very shortly it'll be more money than they. But
so looks like Cuba's next, and maybe also Colombia. People are asking, how is X censoring? So they're doing a combination of throttling posts and stuff like that. So there's a lot of accounts that have been blocked, like in the UAE, like X accounts that are, I guess, access from UAE are blocked. So, for example, if I was saying certain things or whatever, and I pissed them off, or I was, you know, sharing information that they didn't like, then anyone in the UAE, for example, they would go to my Twitter account or my X account. They wouldn't be able to see it. They'd be basically be blocked. And there's a lot of people that have shown that today. I think we show one of those in our updates. And there's also an AI crackdown, which, you know, I think it might be a good thing. AI has basically ruined YouTube. You have people that are mass producing, you know, 10, 15, 20 videos a day and posting it to 50 different accounts and monetizing all of them and getting all the views and that kind of stuff from the people who are actually like physically here doing this. So, but as far as X goes, there's a lot of military stuff coming out that's completely AI, completely fake. Some of it is gaming footage, which is interesting. And some of it's very difficult to tell the difference. So, let's see. It's getting... I think a lot of you don't have X. I mean, I only got on X because I wanted to communicate with a few people. So when people don't share emails and stuff on YouTube, X is like the only way to get a hold of them for interviews and stuff like that. But to me, honestly, I think it's overrated. So it looks like Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Kuwait are considering withdrawal of capital from the U.S. and other foreign investments as the impact of the conflict with Iran continues to escalate. This shift could place more than $2 trillion in U.S. investments at risk. So not only are we paying, latest I heard was $1 billion per day, but now we might, we're at risk of losing this kind of money. And maybe that's why Trump was spending so much time bringing in all these companies and these other countries that were donating, billions and trillions of dollars to us and all these projects and like the server farms and the AI factories and the data centers. Maybe that was all preemptive because of this kind of stuff. It looks like Iran's underground missile cities are becoming key targets. So what they're doing is so like we saw yesterday, the missiles will launch and the launchers are underground. Not all of them, but the ones we're talking about are underground. And when they come out, you can't really tell where they come from. I mean, obviously you see the missile and everything come up, but you don't see like a thing lift and then it shoots and then it like closes. It's just like sand. And then when you see the sand and everything settles, it's just sand again. So what they're doing is when that missile takes off, they have drones and stuff waiting, and then they're going in and exploding and damaging things. They're dropping bunker busters, trying to block tunnels and entrances. So they're really going after these underground missile cities. I don't know how many they have, but I'm sure it's a lot. I would say it's probably a lot. But they seem very confident. I got to tell you, if you see, there's a lot of propaganda, but if you look at the posts by the leadership right now and look at the videos and things that they're recording, they don't seem like they're scared at all. They don't seem like they're shook by what's going on. It's interesting because it makes you wonder, like, what do they have? What are they hiding, right? They said we're using our old missiles, our old drones, all of our old technology right now, and we have some new stuff that we can unleash on you. So we'll see. I know there's some missiles we're going to look at here in a minute that look like they might be technically illegal, like cluster bombs. But here's an attack. And you can see these trucks. So they're launching from these vehicles, and they can obviously drive and move the vehicles around. And that's part of what makes Russia so dangerous, because their ICBMs are, most of them, or a lot of them, are on these trucks. And they like park them in forests and stuff, and you can't see them. Obviously, I mean, we have our Minuteman missile silos. Everyone knows exactly where they are. So they can just hit the button, and they know exactly where it's going to be. So, and fun fact, they say that the Midwest, a lot of the Midwest is like purposefully they placed these silos where they did to basically like wipe out the Midwest and not hurt like the East and West Coast, because that's where like the financial power and everything is. So apparently the Midwest is expendable. That was their plan. So the conflict that I read has led to a missile shortage for Patriot systems. And obviously we saw that coming. Iran has what seems like an endless amount of missiles, especially considering they did the 12-day war, and now they're basically back doing the same thing again. So I'm just reading the chat. Okay. So in the first days of the conflict, the countries of Persia used around 800 surface-to-air missiles. And the cost of these is pretty high. I think it's like $1 million per missile. So, and they don't make them as fast as they don't replenish them as fast as they use them, obviously. And in some cases, they're shooting, 10, 15, 20 of these at one incoming missile. There's no way long term that's going to work out. That's a losing battle, right? So I'm not sure exactly what their plan is at this point. But Lockheed Martin has increased its production threefold, but that's only 600 missiles per year. So if you do the math on that, they've already used 800 in like a week, and they can only make 600 per year at this one factory. I don't know how many factories they have, but that's not good. That's not good numbers. That's upside down. So the longer this goes, the worse it's going to be for us. And like we saw from Professor Zhang, he thinks we're going to lose. He thinks Iran is going to win this 100%. And these MQ-9 Reaper drones, these have been used. Obviously, they have some munitions on them. They have rockets and missiles, and they do surveillance. They do recon. But these guys are very expensive. A lot of countries fear these, and they've been used for assassinations, I believe, as well. But we've lost a couple in war, so they've hit some. And it sounds like we supposedly lost a F-15E. A pilot was ejected successfully, but we are taking, we're getting hit. We're not going in there and doing the shock and awe campaign where we just take everybody out and then we leave. We're in this, and it looks like it's going to be longer term too. And this is just the Nimitz class aircraft, U.S. Abraham Lincoln. Them just taking off. Always kind of cool. Always makes me think of Top Gun. I'm not sure how old you guys are, but, you get that Top Gun nostalgia. So this is another disturbing thing. So if you're the kind of person that is already nervous. Times asked whether Americans should be worried about retaliatory strikes at home. And President Trump said, I guess, but I think they're worried about that all the time. We think about it all the time. We plan for it. But yeah, we expect some things. Like I said, some people will die. When you go to war, some people will die. So they're asking him about it home, not on the battlefield. So it sounds like he's open to, or thinks we might end up in a situation where people may die on American soil. So that's kind of, not ideal. And then United States Central Command is showing this was the Iris Shahid Bagheri, another IRGC Navy. And, they said they took them all out. I don't think this was from today. I think this was previous footage. I think they hit their targets. They look at the footage, make sure it's clear to, declassify, and then they send it out like this. This is a big strike. But this is munition dumps that were hit. And typically, obviously, if you're hitting rockets and missiles and gunpowder and that kind of stuff with another missile, you're going to get a much bigger explosion. But this is one that was in Bashir Air Base.
Oh, bacho, boy!
Let's see. Let's see. Hey, Drillatina, thanks for the super chat. Hey, Matt, what things do you recommend for Americans to prep as families here in the U.S.? So I would always recommend at least 3 months of food and water for like everyone total. So you'll see these like freeze-dried kits that tell you that you'll have 3 months worth of food. And if you look at the calories and that kind of stuff, it's barely enough for one person, let alone like a family of 4. So you want 3 months of food, 3 months of water, 3 months of your medicine, whatever medicine that may be. So if you take insulin, if you have, blood thinners, whatever it is, you want to make sure you have that. And then I had a granola bar and it's bothering my throat. Interesting. Won't eat that again before a stream. And then obviously if you, depending on where you live, I think just in general, you need something to protect yourself with. So if you live in a place that is friendly to firearms and that kind of stuff, I would definitely have some form of protection that way, as well as, enough ammo. And then you want to have things like electrolytes. You want to have the proper clothing for different weather. So imagine today the HVAC just stopped working. You know, I don't know where you live, but say it's, 110 degrees outside and the AC won't work. Or say it's negative 20 out and your heat doesn't work. Then you really have to have a way to keep yourself warm. So a lot of people will put a tent indoors and then light candles and stuff inside of it. It's better to heat a small space. Like you don't want to try and heat your whole house, but you want to pick a room, usually a smaller room, and then you can put a tent in that, and then you can heat inside of that. That's usually the best way to do it. And then you want to make sure any documentation, your birth certificates, anything that is super important, you want to lock that stuff up and make copies of it. Some people say, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but they have digital backups of stuff. So let's see. Yeah, Moon Goddess. So you get your heart meds, go packs. Yep. So there's something that's called like a go bag or ready bag. And usually it's like 72 hours is what, like if you buy one off of Amazon or something, or even some survival places, it's about 72 hours. But that's something you can use. Like if something gets bad right in your immediate area, you can just put that backpack on your back, and you'll have food, water, medications, some form of protection. And then, the obvious things like water filtration and that kind of stuff all in there, a lighter, flashlight, like a heat blanket. So a lot of that stuff you can buy ready-made. But as far as like true prepping, like you can go crazy. I mean, I know people that have, a year or two's worth of food that's ready to go. They have, solar generators for the whole house. So even if the entire grid went down, they'd be fine. They'd just be like a regular day. So you can get as crazy as you want. Let's look at the poll. Will there be a large attack on U.S. or allies today? It looks like 36% say yes, and 45% says hope not, 20% no. The reason I asked that question is because of Azerbaijan and some other places like Cyprus getting hit. That could include U.S. soil, but that wasn't technically a U.S. soil question. All right. Yeah. Raid your mom's pantry. You'll be good. And you have to watch out for wolves too, lone wolves. What they'll do is they'll basically, people who do prep, these lone wolves will go around and they'll have guns and stuff and like little clans. And their whole thing is just to go rob everyone else. So they're not going to prep themselves, but they're going to take what you prep. Now, this is the official, I guess, or semi-official. Analysis by the New York Times suggests that the February 28th strike that hit that elementary school in Manab, Iran, killed at least 175 people. It likely occurred during U.S. attacks on a nearby IRGC naval base, officials say from the U.S. So it looks like after some investigation, it's looking very likely that they were hit. But again, nearby a naval base. Why are they putting schools so close to military targets? Because that same thing happened in Lebanon, in Azerbaijan. So, like I said, it's because it's a pattern. It's starting to be a pattern. Let's see. Did I jump? I think I jumped. Give me 1 second to find out why it jumped. All right, here we go. This is the cluster munitions that I was talking about before. And what did this full screen it? So, and actually, if you look at that right now, it looks like a UFO. Maybe Trump was right. Maybe there are UFOs. But if you look at this one, you'll see that it spreads out and there's multiple munitions that come out of that. And technically, due to international law, that's technically illegal. But we saw some of these hit Israel today. So the multi-warhead functions in a lot of ways like a cluster. That's why people are questioning it. I mean, the amount of damage that does, and not planned damage. Obviously, it's not a targeted hit. It's just going everywhere. It functions the same way as a cluster for the most part. So not good. Not good at all. Let's see, we saw that. This to me, this almost looked like like a nuclear explosion off in the distance. But this was in Tehran. This was in Iran. And this looks like, to me, probably one of those B-52s. Probably dropped something big out there. But they said it turned the night to day. And that's kind of what it looks like to me, too. We talked about that. And there's tons of drone strikes. They all look the same. You know, the drone comes in, turns, and then boom, explodes. So I don't show a lot of those. They're saying officially, U.S. Central Command, that this war is likely to last through September. So whatever they say, just double it. So this will probably be going on for 6 months to a year, and not good. Not good. It looks like my stuff got scrambled somehow. I don't know how that got scrambled, but so this is some of the stuff that they're saying in Tel Aviv, and this is why they think they're censoring things. You can see tons of devastation, lots of damage to multiple buildings, and as they walk through here, it just looks ruined. It looks like it got blasted back to the Stone Age. Yeah, some people are saying it looks like Gaza. That's kind of the comparison a lot of people are doing. This, of course, is the B-52 taking off to head out to Iran. And those bad boys are about 70 years old. I'm not sure if I'd be on one of those, but they're still being used effectively in battle. So, I mean, after 70 years, obviously they were built very well. And then apparently we're using our laser now, the Helios. And I won't read this whole thing, but this is like the, what do they call it? What was the Iron Dome called that had the laser? I don't remember what they called it, but basically the idea of using lasers to intercept instead of missiles. And it's called the Helios in this case. And apparently they're actually using it. So they're getting some testing on it. I think it's a great idea if it works, but much cheaper, right? Because you're looking at $1 million plus per interceptor. With this, I think it was like $25 or less per shot. And it's just, a concentrated laser. So they can get multiple shots over and over and over again. But yes, it is. Yeah, directed energy. Yep. So Iron Beam. That's what it was. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of that one. Obviously we have more footage of like the launches, the launchers. Apparently one launcher was intercepted by the IRGC in Lebanon. Or not the IRGC, IDF. So they're starting to get a little bit of foothold there. This dude, this is someone who's saying that, I'll pause it. He's saying that they were saying that it was decentralized in Iran, like the power and the military groups and stuff. And he's basically saying that everything's a total mess and everyone's doing their own thing. So that's, it's kind of what you would expect, I guess. But maybe once the new supreme leader is chosen, maybe they'll unify again. But that doesn't work well if you're in a war. So I'm not sure how that's going to work long term. But there's a lot of people that are fleeing the country. This is from a Canadian Prepper. I assume some of you guys watch him as well if you watch this kind of stuff. But he's saying people are in panic mode. But this was, I was telling you before. So Clash Report is a great site for news and information. And the UAE has blocked his account in that country. And all they've been doing is basically reporting what's happening. They haven't done anything crazy. There's no like propaganda, but they blocked them. And that's the kind of censorship that I was telling you about before. So very, very interesting. And then this is Kurdistan. They're moving towards the border with Iran, and they're moving some heavy equipment. So more and more people coming in. And yeah, if you want to learn about prepping, like if you're really, really into prep, whether you do it already or you want to, then Canadian Prepper is a good source for a lot of things, especially when you first started. So if you look at some of his older videos, but his strong point is reviewing products. He used to sell them a lot and had a website, and I think he's winding that down now, just to in case something happens. And Kristi Noem, this was saying Trump was prepared to fire Kristi Noem. It sounds like that may have already happened, and I don't know if she's moved to a different position or if she's just done. But apparently he's not happy with her performance. And this kind of says it all right here. You know, the look on his face, the look on her face. She's excited to be there, and she's doing her thing. And he's just like, oh, my gosh. So, yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words or a million words, depending on how you look at it. This is petroleum getting hit. This is in Bahrain. And they're still getting hit, not quite as much as when it first started. But I think they've already hit the targets they wanted to, the military bases. So now they're just kind of hitting oil fields and other things, which they do every war. That's kind of their go-to. We saw the munition. This was a series of explosions. This was in Parchin military complex in Iran, east of Tehran. And I'll full screen that.
حاجی ریدم حاجی.
No, the interesting part is you can see it, but you don't hear it. So it must have been a decent ways away, and I'm sure the sound would have gotten there eventually. But big strikes, and typically those are bombers. Like missiles aren't typically going to be that big unless they hit a munition depot or something else. But and this is Netanyahu, and he's with some F-22s. They're talking about their achievements and that kind of stuff. But he's doing the photo ops and hanging out with the soldiers. I think it's interesting how they block everyone's face, but not his. You know, he's out there doing his thing. But, you know, he's very involved. A lot of people were suspecting that maybe he was eliminated, but obviously he's alive and well. And, yeah, just lots of B-2 strikes happening. It looks like, as far as money goes, I think Trump already asked for, like, what was it, $1 trillion or something, and he wanted another half, or what was it? Let's see. It was a huge amount of money that he's already gotten for this stuff. And now he wants more. But the Pentagon is prepping a supplemental budget request of about $50 billion to replenish weapons. And because of this Middle East operation, they think we're going to be going down pretty quick. So our U.S. stockpiles that would be for any war against Russia or anyone else, China, they're going down pretty quick, and they want to replenish that, which means we would have to move to a wartime economy for that to happen. So, yeah, that might be coming soon to a theater near you. More strikes. This is Zelensky, and he's kind of, I don't want to say he's like, he's kind of talking crap, right? which he always has. Even when he was in the White House, in the Oval Office, he was talking crap on camera in front of, 20 or 30 news agencies. But he basically says, sarcastically, I once asked a leader if they could give us Patriot missiles. He said they had few left in stock. I didn't tell them, let me come to your country and check your warehouses. We must respect each other. We are an independent state. So now he's basically, now he gets to talk crap because they need him to help out with the drones and stuff and the defense. And then we have more ballistic missile. These are the trucks that are shooting ballistic missiles. They've hit 300 so far. These are the launchers. And it looks like 500 cruise missiles and 2,000 drones have been launched since this started. I think there was one day in the 12-day war where they launched 200 ballistic missiles in one volley. So to me, 500 total seems pretty low, actually. So it seems like maybe the drones are doing a majority of the work in this war so far, which would make sense. They're a lot cheaper. But there is a Frederick Pleitgen. If you want to see someone with like boots on the ground type of thing, he's doing that for CNN. I don't know which way he leans politically. I would assume since he's CNN, he's probably left, but he is out there. He's actually in, I don't know who he's with. I don't know if he's with IDF or U.S. or what, but he is in Iran. So that's interesting. They are targeting bunkers. So this is an underground bunker that I think is a missile bunker, like the one that launches.
می‌بینی صدا انفجارشو؟
من اینا رو فقط تو Call of Duty دیدم.
So you can see here when they hit, let me find a good one. Like, okay, so like these ones here, the bunker busters, they go into the ground first, and they can go down pretty decently. I want to say like 100 feet, 100 yards or something. I don't know. It's a good distance. It can go through, you know, rock, concrete, brick, whatever. And then once it gets to a certain depth, then it will explode. So these explosions are big explosions, but they're mostly underground. So we're just seeing what's coming out of the top. So, let's see. Yeah, Iran's 3 times the size of Texas with 90 million people. And of those 90 million people don't agree with each other, apparently, based on what I'm seeing. But just a lot more stuff going on. People fleeing. We have lots of drone footage from everywhere. This is supposedly transport planes in Iraq that are arming the Kurdish groups. So we are using kind of like contract military to go in and fight with us or for us. And it's something that I think we've done before with the same groups. This is the missile barrage from a different angle that was looking like cluster munitions. And I don't know if they're going to try and, you know, talk about war crimes or something after this, but clearly that's not only going to hit the one target it's intended for. So if you have a bunch of citizens out in the street, in the town square, and they're aiming for the building next to it, that thing is just going to carpet bomb everything everywhere. So to me, that's just as bad as a cluster bomb for sure. And Trump, of course, says people love what's happening. Cuba's going to fall too. So they are very, very happy about this. They're on a high horse. They're super excited. And then these are some of the cases where there were certain attacks, like in Azerbaijan. They thought it was a drone, but it's actually a missile. So it's this guy here, this Arash 2. And I mean, Iran's capabilities as far as missile goes is actually pretty impressive, to be honest. You know, people are asking me, like, are you like pro-Iran or something? Like, no, the technology they use and their missiles and their ingenuity, the underground missile cities, I mean, all that stuff is crazy. That is a great question. That's the $1 million question right there. What would a wartime economy look like today? I have no idea. I'm not a economist, but I can tell you it'd probably be pretty rough either way, especially if you consider how, not to say everyone, but a lot of Americans are very lazy. So just imagine a situation where people have to start going into factories again and making munitions and ammunition and bombs and drones and all that kind of stuff and doing maintenance on military equipment. I don't even know if people have it in them to do that stuff anymore. Like the whole Rosie the Riveter thing. I don't think that would happen with our generations. This is just more about that guy crossing into the border. And then this is a interceptor. So this is a Ukrainian interceptor shooting down a Shahed in Ukraine. And the Shaheds are being used by Russia, courtesy of Iran, basically, right? But this is the kind of stuff that the U.S. is wanting help with to figure out to help them in their battle right now in Iran.
Brett Velikovich is a drone expert, Fox News contributor, and founder of Power U.S. Brett, the drone warfare we're seeing, tell us what's going on.
Well, I think the real story here, Jesse, is how America's AI crushed Iran's response time, and that included using AI for drone technology. This isn't AI theory anymore, Jesse. This is AI combat, and it's happening now. The reports were clear. Our forces used various AI tools, which process mountains of intel, satellites, drone feeds, signals faster than any human ever could, and compressed the kill chain to hours, not days. And we had nearly 900 strikes during the opening operation. Key regime figures dead, enemy capabilities flattened before they could even blink. And that's what happens when you pair world-class AI with our best and brightest American operators who, as we speak, are bringing justice to the thousands of brutally murdered by the Iranian regime. And what I believe we witnessed here was one of the most decisive, technologically game-changing moments in modern-day military history, and America delivered it. The strikes are going to send a message, frankly, far beyond Iran. It tells adversaries around the world that we just officially crossed a threshold with our weaponry where artificial intelligence isn't just a buzzword, it's being embedded.
How much do you think he's getting paid for that speech he just gave? It sounded very, very rehearsed. But this whole AI thing, I think, is going to be a major issue. I mean, a warfare that's AI-driven. They're already using it, but obviously the more they use it, the more it's going to be integrated. And that's kind of the premise behind Terminator, was the AI kind of takes over and decides that, you know, that humans should be nuked. Like they're going to destroy the planet and each other, so just take them out. And we see that over and over again in all these different movies, but I think there's a reason for that, because I think that's what the programs end up doing. And I know that, like, a lot of the different ones like Claude, and I don't think it was ChatGPT, but there was like 3 or 4 different AI setups, and they gave them the same simulation, and all of them, most of the time, always ended in nuking everything. So I don't know what the exact logic was, but it's definitely happening. And this is an Italian defense minister says Italy plans to deploy multiple domain force in the Middle East, and they're also going to be doing drones and missiles. So it looks like Italy is definitely in, but I heard that Spain, yeah, Trump and the Spanish Spanish leadership have been talking crap all day to each other. So I'm not sure where that's going to go. But it's really cool when you see like these F-35s and stuff landing just like the old hover jets. The first few times I saw this, I thought it was AI or something. But you remember in the old days, they had to actually take off down the runway and land back on there. And now they just hover over the top and land that way. It's pretty slick. You gonna land today? There we go. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. We didn't have that when I was a kid. This is one of their more powerful missiles. It's a medium-range ballistic missile, kind of similar to the, what was that Russian one called? I'd have to look that up. Oreshnik. There we go. It's kind of like that, but I think the Oreshnik might be a little bit more advanced as far as the hypersonic entry vehicles and stuff. But it would seem they have basically mastered missiles, and they've basically mastered and been the leader in drones. So it makes you wonder what else they have. I don't know if I buy that that's all they have. So hopefully things don't get a lot worse. This is kind of, obviously people are arguing about this all the time and going back and forth and feel differently about it. But this little clip, I think, says it pretty well.
First of all, I must make clear, Israel does not dictate to President Trump anything, and Israel does not drag America into a war. God forbid, we are not there. America is the superpower of the world, and President Trump is the leader of the free world. And this decision of his is out of clear considerations and professional decision-making process. First of all, I must make clear.
So, you know, just like Netanyahu when he had that big smile and actually laughed during the Hannity interview, you know, he said, people are saying that you pulled the U.S. into this war, and he had a good laugh about it. And this guy's saying that, you know, Israel doesn't dictate anything to Donald Trump. He does what he wants. He's a powerful leader, and these are his decisions. So that's what we're hearing. I'm just looking at this. Is there a bot in the chat? I have something that hits most bots, but let's see. Someone harassing somebody. Johnny 10,000. Let's see. All right. Boom, 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 boom. So that is most of what I have. There are a few things here and there, but a lot of it is just talking about the same types of things. And like I said, they're censoring a lot. So, you know, we go in here and we find all this information. This was the USV, the unmanned surface vehicle. This is the one that hit the boat. But you can see that kind of damage. It'll, you know, a lot of these tankers, they have 2 layers. So they have 2 holes. So they can take a pretty good hit. They can take multiple rockets. But these are designed to blow up from underneath. Typically, if you hit from the side, it'll hit the outer hole, but the inner hole might hold. But if you go from the bottom, it'll lift the boat up, and it'll kind of like make it, you know, put pressure on it and make it snap in half. But yeah, I won't be going on a cruise anytime soon. That's pretty creepy stuff. But yeah, like I said, I think there's nothing else major that was in here. So that's basically our news up to this point. That's the news that I can find. I mean, like I said, they're censoring a lot. So we will switch to monitoring and obviously chat and that kind of stuff. I'll put some polls up. But it's kind of, I don't want to say it's quiet, because obviously there's a lot of stuff happening. But clearly they're censoring things. And we know that just because of, oh, there must have been a strike in Lebanon. Or somebody's getting really, really, really baked. One of the two. Or they burnt their ramen. I don't know. I just thought of a dumb joke. They burnt their Ramadan. All right, let's see. Get rid of that. I didn't see any alarms go off or anything. I didn't hear any either. So that one must have snuck in.
Such a clamor. Oh, so great, everything's great, but they don't win. This guy won. He came in, there was tremendous fanfare, and he won. You know, right? But it's true, they don't win. They come in and, you know, they're great players and they can even play okay, but they don't win. And Leo, you came in and you won, and that's something very hard to do, very unusual. And frankly, there's a lot more pressure put on you than anyone would know, because, you know, you're sort of expected to win, but almost nobody wins. They come in, they're great, they're the best in the world, they get paid a fortune. You came in and you won with all that pressure. That's an amazing tribute, so congratulations. Right? But in that moment, you sealed a truly historic Inter-Miami victory. And think of that, first club ever, North America, to top the so-called European clubs. Pretty amazing thing to do. Returning to the MLS, Inter-Miami built on that incredible momentum, playing a record number of games and scoring a total of 101 goals, the most in MLS history. Is that correct, Mr. Commissioner? Well, that's pretty good. How's Andrew? Is Andrew treating you okay? He's a good golfer, too, actually. People don't know it. He's a very good golfer, right, Andrew? But Trump's a good golfer, too, Andrew.
So I did, I know I was telling people I was going to get the EAMs and the military radio set up to listen to like nuclear codes and that kind of thing if you're into that. But you can hear it right now. Well, actually, you can't hear it now. Let me unmute it. So that is just the regular, the air that you hear. And then when they come on, I can hear them, but they're not clean. So I want them to be set up in a way so you don't hear the static at all. So I want it to be basically dead quiet. And then when the attack codes and stuff come through, then it will, you know, kind of like kick in and then it'll give it to you and then it'll shut back off. I have that stuff coming. It should probably be here either Saturday or Sunday. And I'll get that set up. And then I think that's probably the last thing I need to have this thing fully decked out the way I want. So kind of cool.
What a group of people. We could have a lot of fun with these guys. You can imagine when they win how they celebrate. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. In that MLS Cup final against the Vancouver Whitecaps, the entire team played together as one flawless unit. Just flawless, they say. After Vancouver tied the game 1-1, Leo picked the pocket of a Whitecap defender and sent a pass to the great Rodrigo De Paul. Where the hell is Rodrigo? Do you have any bad-looking players? Yeah. I like the bad-looking guys much better. Who stuck a low-driving shot into the side net, taking the lead. And then in the 6th extra minute of stoppage time, Tadeo drove home your third and final goal, making the score 3-1 and securing your status as the first champions in club history. What an amazing accomplishment. Coach Mascherano became one of the few head coaches to win the MLS Cup finals in his very first year. And Leo claimed the 47th trophy of his storied career. 47th, can you imagine that? The most of all time. That's the most of all time. So Leo is the reigning FIFA World Cup MVP. You could have gone anywhere in the world. You could have chosen any team in the world, and you chose to go to Miami. I don't blame you. The weather's extremely good. Do you go to Doral? You go to Doral and play golf? And I just want to thank you for bringing us all in this ride, because you are hot and talented and a great person. I look forward to seeing many of you on the summer. We're going to be out there in the summer in 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Are being impacted. The reports, footages, and of course my own personal witnessing quite clear indicates that actually this is not just these places belonging to military or political establishment, but civilians are being targeted as well. According to the latest report, which is from Red Crescent, we know that at least 1,300 people were killed, but unfortunately we can rest assured, seeing the very ongoing nature of these strikes, that these numbers alongside the growing concerns about more and more injuries could grow up. Of course, this is not just limited to the Iranian capital. In Shiraz, Isfahan, Kermanshah, and other cities, we are receiving reports about the continuation of these strikes, as we also hear at the time being the sounds related to actually the fighter jets overhead. This is continuation of the Israeli and American strikes, while on the other hand, Tehran says it's going to continue to strike back. Yesterday, we've got the statement from the IRGC saying that the 21st wave of their strikes was conducted, targeting the heart of Tel Aviv with hypersonic missiles. Also, we've got the spokesperson of IRGC again saying that we are ready for a long-time war to punish the aggressor with new initiative, with new weaponaries, And all in all, I can say that right now we don't see any sign of de-escalation, seeing the realities on the ground.
Okay, so no signs of de-escalation, and as you say, civilian sites also being targeted by this bombing campaign. My understanding is that a lot of people have already left Tawhid, left the city of Tehran. For those who remain in the city, where are they taking shelter? And please correct me if I'm wrong, but the internet is still blacked out in Iran. So if that's the case, how is the government warning people of new incoming strikes, or are they? Okay, looks like we lost Tawhid Asadi there. When we get the connection back, we will try to go back to Tawhid. But we are also, of course, monitoring the situation in Lebanon, where Hezbollah has warned Israeli residents to evacuate towns within 5 kilometers of the border. So we have a message that has been posted on the Telegram channel of Hezbollah. It says, your military's aggression against Lebanese sovereignty and safe citizens, the destruction of civilian infrastructure, and the expulsion campaign it is carrying out will not go unchallenged. We also have these live pictures out of Beirut where you can see there are multiple fires that are burning there as a result of these Israeli strikes. We have been able to see them more clearly as the dawn has broken in the city. There are also, of course, Israeli troops in the southern part of Lebanon. For more on all of this, let's go to Heidi Pett, who is standing by for us in Beirut. So Heidi, what more do we know about these strikes, and what more do we know about this issue, this warning that Hezbollah is issuing to Israelis along the border?
So there's been a number of very large airstrikes across the country overnight. There were 11 on the southern suburbs of Beirut that I counted while we were looking over them throughout the evening, and some of them were extraordinarily large and loud airstrikes. There were also airstrikes in the Bekaa Valley, which is in the east of Lebanon towards the Syrian border. And of course, we again saw continued strikes across the south of the country. Now, many of these areas have been the subject of forced evacuation orders by the Israeli military. So yesterday afternoon, about 3 p.m., they ordered one for the entirety of Dahia, which is the collective name for Beirut's southern suburbs. Hundreds of thousands of people live there, and so they fled in a panic. There was gridlock across Beirut, complete bedlam as people, fleeing with anything and everything that they could get their hands on in time. And we've also seen these massive evacuation orders over the last couple of days for everybody who lives south of the Litani River, which is a very large part of Lebanon, down towards the Israeli border. And so what we have seen in the last couple of hours actually is this warning issued by Hezbollah in Hebrew on one of its Telegram channels, telling Israeli residents of the northern areas near the Lebanese border that they need to vacate that area to a depth of 5 kilometers. It's unclear whether that signals any imminent military activity, as these Israeli ones normally do, or whether it's a little bit of tit for tat, because the feeling here in Lebanon is that sometimes these forced evacuation orders, which I should stress, airstrikes don't always come with an order, and orders don't always come with an airstrike. But the feeling is that sometimes they are a form of psychological warfare, that the residents of Lebanon have to keep an eye on the X accounts of military spokespeople from the Israeli army to know whether or not they have to leave their homes at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so it's possible that this tit-for-tat warning by Hezbollah is a form of, trying to sort of even up the boundaries there, or whether it is an indication that we are going to see a renewal of drone and projectile attacks into northern Israel from Lebanon.
Yeah, and we know from Roy Challen's reporting that the Israelis are telling people along the border in Israel not to evacuate there. I also want to ask you, Heidi, about the comments that we're hearing from the Israeli finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who said this: very soon Dahia, referring to the southern suburb of Beirut, will resemble Han Yunis, which of course refers to the part of Gaza that has been the victim of this genocide campaign by the Israelis there. Are Lebanese people aware of these comments? I mean, are they taking them seriously? And is there anyone in Lebanon, be it Hezbollah or the state, that can really do much about this?
Yeah, those comments from the Israeli, not foreign minister, the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, have caused widespread fear and anger here in Lebanon. But in terms of anybody's ability to counter them, the issue here is the sort of fallout from the Lebanese civil war, where you had a number of different armed factions representing different sects and a very, very violent war. And at the end of that war, Hezbollah was the only one of those factions that was allowed to maintain their weapons. And the stated reason for that was to counter Israeli aggression in the south of the country, which is where they have had their traditional support base. Now, at the conclusion of the war between Hezbollah and Israel in November of 2024, part of that ceasefire deal, the Israelis were supposed to withdraw from the territory that they actually still continue to occupy in the south of the country, but Hezbollah was supposed to disarm south of the Litani River, and the deadline for that closed at the end of last year. It obviously didn't happen. They are still active and operating down there. And the Lebanese state has now indicated that it wants to really enforce that. It has declared all of the security and military activities of Hezbollah to be illegal. It has arrested a number of men who are traveling to the south with weapons in the last couple of days. But its ability to reign in Hezbollah is somewhat limited. And the other thing that's limited is, of course, the ability of the Lebanese armed forces to also counter Israel. You've got a very complicated situation in the south where you've got Hezbollah operating. You have the Lebanese army occupying some positions, which they've actually moved around and withdrawn from some in the face of Israeli ground offensives in recent days. And you also have a UN peacekeepers monitoring force called UNIFIL. So there's so many actors down there. But the Lebanese army has even admitted themselves that they have limited capacity to counter Israeli attacks.
Yeah, so Hezbollah, the Lebanese army, UNIFIL, and now also Israeli troops also occupying territory in southern Lebanon. Complicated picture, to say the least. Heidi, thank you. Now, as I mentioned, Roy Challens is also following developments in Israel. He's in Amman, the Jordanian capital, because Israel has banned Al Jazeera from reporting there. He has this report on the latest Iranian strikes on Tel Aviv, a number of which broke through defense systems there.
Well, look, any air defense system, as competent and as good as it is, and as layered as it is, there is always going to be stuff that gets through. The Israelis know that. And when you have as many rockets being launched at Israeli towns and cities as Iran has been doing over the last 5 days, then yes, there will be some getting through. There was what the IRGC, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, called Wave 21 of its retaliatory operation. It launched that earlier on this evening, and it said that this was a combined drone and missile attack. It specifically said that included in that attack package there was a cluster munition, and we saw visual evidence of that with people filming the cluster, a starburst essentially in the night sky with these lights sort of twinkling down to ground level. There were.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, Michael. Based on everything that I've seen, if you go over here and we look at the shipping and stuff, you can see there's a similar number of vessels. Oh, sorry, you can't see that, can you? There we go. There's a similar number of vessels, but they're more spread out, and there's definitely not as much congestion over here. So there's definitely more traffic going. And I think the official statement today from Iran is that they weren't necessarily blocking. They said they're not necessarily closing it. Did I just mute myself? I did. They're not necessarily closing it, but they're still bombing some ships and sending underwater drones and stuff to hit some of these tankers. I don't know if they're only targeting U.S. tankers, but still not good. But I would agree. Overall, it looks like it is less congested. But I know yesterday they had a huge line of like 100 tankers in a row that were just hanging out there, so there's still something going on. Let me turn these down a little bit. It's interesting trying to find a good level between all the different videos, all playing audio all at the same time. So let me know if at any point some of them are too loud. I want to make sure it's loud enough that we can hear the sirens and explosives if they happen.
At
was high, and then people were advised to stay indoors. But very shortly after that, we received another message. Another message came through saying that that security threat had been eliminated. And usually when we get messages like this, that means there are some aerial...
Looks like we have some incoming in Israel. It's up by Lebanon. Well, yeah. Looks like it's probably going to be drones or rockets from Lebanon. And I think that's probably going to be the main hotspot for a while. I know there were some attacks going off earlier today. I almost went live around, like, I think it was 11 or 12. There was a bunch of missiles and stuff that were incoming in Israel, and the sirens were going off and everything. I'm just like, man, you know, trying to find a good time to go live, considering you have like the bigger channels that have like 1 million subscribers or pretty close, and they'll have like 40 or 50,000 people in there. You know, with like our smaller channels like this, we can't really compete. The algorithm doesn't push us out, so I didn't want to go live competing with them. So I don't know, maybe I could try that another day. What is that sound? So it looks like... Hey T-Roy, how's it going? Yep, hit that like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Aircraft incursions, yep. And someone said something about someone was back. We got Johnny 10,000 back. Is he causing problems? We always give people a second chance, but you know, after that, we can't be as nice. Got to keep it civil. You can disagree. You can even tell each other what each other's saying is wrong and horrible, but I just have to do it respectfully. Yeah, this happened yesterday about the Marine, and it was... Let me see what his name was. Was it Sheehy? Something like that. He was a Navy SEAL or something before, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah. It's Sheehy, S-H-E-E-H-Y. And he's the one that assisted in breaking the Marine's arm. I mean, it was technically, it's because his arm was in the door. He had like 3 grown men trying to pull him. So obviously it's going to break. So you can't really say that he did it by himself. But there's some other stuff that's very interesting. Someone sent me an email, and obviously going to keep them anonymous, but apparently he might allegedly have some ties to Charlie Kirk and TPUSA and TPUSA action behind the scenes. So I have a very, very long email with tons of details from someone, and apparently they sent this to several creators. So I don't know if anyone else is going to cover this anytime soon, but very interesting how that might be somehow maybe connected. What was that? Did that sound staticky to anyone else? Yeah, we have some more drones coming in. Northern Israel, up by Lebanon. And it looks like, interestingly, usually Israel's lit up. And right now, it's just one tiny area with like 3 warnings. Day 1 and 2, it just looked like someone took every pen from Google Maps and just put it all on Israel. So they're doing good now. As long as we're actually hearing what's happening, right? We don't know if they're in a media blackout too. It's very possible. Let's see, ORD Says you were suspended by X. Was it for this type of content, or what was it? Yes, someone said they heard static. Yeah. So I don't know where that was coming from. Let me do a test. I wonder if the level's too high or something over here. That was from the app. 'Cause that's not, yeah, that's not clipping or anything. So the app is, the so far app is having some funky stuff going on. I'll just mute them. I'll let you know if they're coming in. All right.
There'll be no surprise. I don't see that happening. I see zero political interest in getting bogged down in another war. The only thing I can think of would be special operations and potentially the CIA, which may be there already. I don't know, but certainly that's been reporting when it comes to the Iranian Kurds. But I don't see a large ground invasion politically, and we would all see it if it was going to happen. How these campaigns go, the initial volley is going to be these expensive guided missiles. They're unmanned. So when you're taking out air and missile defense, when you're taking out the enemy's air force, those are the most effective because you don't lose a lot of pilots. Once you've taken out the air and missile defense and the air force, then you gain air superiority and eventually air supremacy. And that is what happened here, so that these pilots can fly freely over around, dropping these other types of bomb, which are much less expensive and we have in much higher supply. That's normal for how these campaigns go. Obviously, the United States wants to preserve its high end when it doesn't need it. It doesn't want to use it. But that is normal how these campaigns would go from the sky, from the air.
Well, Donald Trump will meet executives from the country's biggest defense contractors at the White House on Friday. They are expected to discuss the acceleration of weapons production. The Pentagon is trying to replenish supplies after strikes in Iran and several other locations. Lucia Newman reports now from Washington.
At one of the Pentagon's favorite arms factories in Arkansas, an unusual visit from the Secretary of War, where 1,500 workers were given a pep talk.
You are the patriots, ensuring that our warriors are never, ever in a fair fight. The warfighters need you to build, and they need it yesterday.
The White House has fast-tracked a $50 billion arms budget in Congress. And the Pentagon plans to buy 57 Tomahawk long-range guided missiles this year. But that's not enough. The U.S. and its Gulf allies are reportedly running low on interceptor missiles. They also need more medium and short-range missiles to replenish those used so far against Iran and elsewhere. The White House isn't underestimating Iran's offensive capabilities.
They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month.
Hence the renewed pressure on U.S. arms manufacturers. President Donald Trump is warning them that manufacturers who are deemed to be underperforming could lose their multi-million-dollar contracts, all the while insisting that the United States has plenty of weapons left. But there's another issue: the impact of this conflict on the economy. World War II established conditions for future growth and played a role in ending the Great Depression by increasing government spending and...
Hey, for whatever reason, this stream stops. I just saw a bunch of lightning and stuff outside, and we have some possible tornadoes and stuff that may happen. So if you see me just tweet and I'm gone, then you know the lightning struck or something. But I'm all right.
It could have a catastrophic impact on oil prices and the global economy. Not to mention the biggest cost of all, the human cost. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives has narrowly rejected a resolution that would have restricted President Trump's war in Iran. The vote came one day after senators defeated a similar measure. Patty Culhane.
Breaking news, it looks like U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez, representative in Texas, says he will not seek re-election. This comes after he admitted to having an affair with a staffer who later died by suicide. I don't know if this is like the Clinton suicide or if this is an actual suicide, but that's pretty terrible. And Donald Trump indicated he wanted to see Iran's leadership structure fully removed, and he's had some leaders that he wants to put in himself. But it sounds like either way, no matter whether they vote for a new Ayatollah or he like installs someone, he wants to be involved either way. So he wants to make sure his hands are part of the final decision, which is interesting. I'm not sure that we should have any say in other countries' leadership, but I know that that's something that the U.S. Has kind of always done, whether it's through the CIA or whatever. They typically will take over or topple a regime and then install someone. So not too surprising.
And our military to finally close once and for all this dark chapter of history and pave the way for lasting peace.
The Constitution makes clear the only other branch of government that could have stopped this is Congress. But they could have another chance because the law says that after 90 days, the president has to get congressional authorization, and pressure could be mounting on Republicans.
So let's assess.
Some of the most prominent Trump supporters in the media are outraged for what they see as the real reason for the attacks.
Why did this happen? Now, in this case, there's a really simple answer. This happened because Israel wanted it to happen. This is Israel's war. This is not the United States' war. This war is not being waged on behalf of American national security objectives to make the United States safer or richer. This war is not actually even about weapons of mass destruction, nukes.
Also criticizing the warnings about imminent attacks from Iran, the administration has claimed.
Does it make any sense to you that Iran was planning preemptive strikes against us and our civilians, knowing full well of the massive military assets we had moved into the region, the aircraft carriers and so on? Obviously, it doesn't.
In his second term, President Trump has launched strikes on 7 separate countries with little consequence for the American people. But this time that could be very different for the U.S. military and the economy. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera on Capitol Hill.
Brian Zinke is a Republican congressman and a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. My colleague Sara Hayrat spoke with him earlier. Zinke says he believes the war is justified and will be over quickly.
Well, first of all, both efforts to check President Trump's power failed. And secondly, the president has an obligation by Constitution to protect this country. And in his judgment and many others, Iran represented an imminent threat. And they were offered a deal. The deal was you cannot have nuclear weapons. You cannot have aspirations for nuclear weapons, and the material you have, which we know they have, we know how much they have, they'll have to give that up. They chose not to. So
it always makes you wonder when you see these patterns that they're flying. So this is a UAV. It's showing it as an airplane, but it's actually, I mean, it might be like a large wing or something, but if you look at this thing, look at these like little spirals. It makes you wonder if it's actually legitimately doing that. But if you look at this pattern, it looks like crop circles. It's very strange. But it seems like they all do the same or similar type of pattern. The one that was off the coast of Qatar, let me see, is that still over there? Or Cyprus, I mean. That one looks like it's gone. But that pattern looked almost identical. But I wonder, I mean, if they're doing recon on that kind of stuff, it seems strange that they would do that type of pattern. But I guess maybe that's the way they're programmed to go. Does it say total distance? It does not. Is it? It's only at 2,000 feet.
Israel, missiles are going everywhere. The last point is this. The centralized command and control has been disabled, and now what you have is a decentralized command and control, which offers two things. One, it's more difficult to target, but also you have different commanders acting in their own accord rather than a centralized government. So that's kind of where we are. I think the next 72 hours, I think the Secretary Hegseth said it right, the next 72 hours will intensify in strikes. And the distance between strikes, meaning the distance between an airplane and the target, will be lessened because you're less offset from the sea.
Can
Republicans afford to take the risk here of supporting this war with all the repercussions that it could have moving forward, depending on how long this war will be on the domestic front?
Well, if the war is prolonged, which I don't believe it will,
But that's not, I mean, Trump says it could
down.
take a lot longer, though.
I don't believe it will. I believe at the end of the day, a lot of this is up to the Iranian people. The president has said regime change. We're hoping the Iranian people rise and take over their country. The way I look at it, I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I look at the Middle East as an opportunity for a golden era in the Middle East. I mean, can you imagine what the Middle East could do economically, prosperity-wise, if they didn't have a neighbor that was launching missiles at everyone and inflicting pain and misery with Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis? There's the fundamentals of an era of prosperity, I think, that's probably second to none in the world. You have very, very smart people. I've met the leadership. I'm impressed with the leadership in the Middle East. So what I'm hoping is this war ends, that a new regime takes place, Iran people who are very, very smart people rise, take over their country, and the next phase will be prosperity in the Middle East.
All right, if you are just joining us, here's a quick recap of the top stories that we're following this hour.
It looks like there is a Poseidon. This is the one that looks for submarines. There is one starting to head to that area now. It took off from... Is there a base here? It took off near Catania. But it is basically making a beeline for the Mediterranean over here. So we may... Actually, I wonder if it's going to go back to the same spot we saw yesterday. Remember, it was to here just off the west coast of Israel. Just above Egypt. I wonder if it's going to go back to the exact same spot. That would be a sign that they probably found something, but couldn't 100% pin it down.
The occupied West Bank. Explosions have caused significant damage to buildings in Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Hezbollah warned Israeli residents to evacuate towns within 5 kilometers of the border. Well, thousands of people in Lebanon are fleeing as Israel's offensive intensifies. The majority who are leaving the country, at least, are heading into Syria. Obeida Hitto filed this report from the border crossing southwest of Homs.
As the Israeli bombing campaign on Lebanon intensifies, the humanitarian crisis is growing. Over the last several days, thousands of people have been crossing over from Lebanon into Syria, the vast majority of them Syrian. And we're at one of those border crossings, El Jusiya in Homs province. And what you're seeing here is the entrance of the border crossing where...
So Jamie, she says, are the spirals from being shot down, assuming it shows elevation changes. So let me adjust my filter here. That should be showing. So typically, is it? Oh, I must only be showing these. Let me turn those off. Okay, there we go. This one. So like this UAV here. So the fact that the way you can tell that it's not shot down or that it's not destroyed is because the fact that we can see it means just transponders on, so it's still functional. And it's, when we saw it, it was over here, and now it's all the way over here, so we know it's actually on the move. So these spirals in this case are not related to damage or being attacked. It was just its flight pattern. Now some of this could be funky due to GPS and that kind of stuff, but if you look at how perfect these circles appear and how there's so many, they look even like the distance apart between them even looks pretty uniform. So I think this was maybe a test flight, recon, I'm not sure. And then obviously it's heading back towards wherever it took off from. So, yep. Good question though.
Sure, the situation remains calm, and to prevent any kind of incidents from the Lebanese side of the border and even here on the Syrian side of the border. Obeida Hitto, Al Jazeera, Homs, Syria.
Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron says the government is ready to send armored vehicles to Lebanon. Macron urged Hezbollah to stop attacking Israel and called on both Israel and Iran not to involve Lebanon further in the war. France has also authorized U.S. forces to use one of its bases on the condition they're not used to strike Iran. American troops will have temporary access to a base on French territory. Natasha Butler reports from Paris.
Well, there had been some confusion here in France over whether or not the United States was able to use French military air bases in the Gulf. Well, the French military have clarified the situation. What they are saying is that some US aircraft used only for logistical and support purposes can use some French air bases. But here in France, the French military are also saying that they have guarantees from the US military that those aircraft are not at all involved in any airstrikes on Iran. Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron has condemned the US and Israeli airstrikes on Iran as going against and breaking international law and rules. And he says that France will remain in a purely defensive position. He's had phone calls with the US President and with the Israeli Prime Minister and mentioned as such. He has called for a de-escalation of tensions, as has the French Foreign Minister, who has spoken to his Iranian counterpart, also calling for a return to diplomacy. Well, meanwhile, France's defensive operations are stepping up. France is sending its flagship aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, to the eastern Mediterranean. It is expected to get there towards the beginning of next week. It is also joining forces with Italy and Greece in order to try and patrol the Red Sea to ensure those shipping routes there are safe. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
European foreign ministers have held a video meeting with representatives from the Gulf Cooperation Council. The EU has been scrambling to respond after Israel and the United States launched their war in Iran without consulting European powers. The EU's foreign affairs chief says U.S. foreign policy shifts have shaken the bloc's relationship with Washington. Osama bin Javed reports now from Brussels.
Spain has become the latest European country to send its naval assets to the eastern Mediterranean. It will be sending its most advanced frigate off the coast of Cyprus. Italy has also indicated that it will also be sending its naval forces and air defenses. This comes as there has been a meeting in Brussels with European foreign ministers as well as GCC ministers, and the Gulf Cooperation Council has been assured by the European Union that it will stand by its Gulf allies in this time of need. It has said that it is going to try and continue to find ways of de-escalation as well as push for a diplomatic solution, whatever that may look like, for Iran to not develop a nuclear weapon. But it appears that the European Union is also promising that it could provide other defensive support to its European allies.
When it comes to also the drone interceptors, there is a need in both of these wars. So there is really problem with the production. We need to also do more on the European side and really speed up. When it comes to drones and drone interceptor drones, then Ukraine has really been able to produce a lot and can also share this knowledge with the Gulf countries to boost this production.
So as more words of support come from Europe and various European capitals, it remains to be seen how Europe can find its footing in this conflict, where essentially it is an American-Israeli decision to go to war. Although there is a lot of impact on European countries and European expatriates, they've not been part of the decision-making process, but there's hope that the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Europeans can talk to their respective spheres of influence and try and find an off-ramp. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Brussels.
Well, the British Prime Minister has announced he's sending additional fighter jets to Qatar. Keir Starmer says their purpose is to defend his country's interests and that of its allies.
When Iran started attacking countries around the Gulf and the wider region, the situation changed. Iran has now fired drones and missiles at 10 countries that did not attack them. These are allies of the UK, where we have hundreds of thousands of British people, as well as British military personnel. Our number one priority is protecting our people.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump says he would support Kurdish fighters launching an offensive in Iran, saying, quote, if they want to do that. The comment came after a site belonging to an Iranian Kurdish opposition group was targeted in northern Iraq. The Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan advocates self-determination for the Kurdish minority there. A drone struck the group's building in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region. No injuries have been reported. U.S. media say Washington has been in contact with Kurdish groups in both Iran and Iraq. All right, Yerevan Saeed is a Barzani scholar in residence at American University's School of International Service. He is also the director of the Global Kurdish Initiative for Peace. He says it would be extremely risky for Kurdish groups to take any action in Iran right now.
Not just for the Kurds in Iran, but also for the Iraqi Kurdistan as well, because these Iranian opposition groups have been based on the border with Iran inside Iraqi Kurdistan. So if this is not going to go in the right way, I think it's going to have blowback not just for them, but also for the entire Kurdish population across the Middle East. I highly doubt that the Kurdish insurgents groups are going to do anything unless there will be some sort of a guarantee by the United States and Israel that they would be protected, because it's not something they can just do it by themselves. And if they are going to do anything that lacks or devoid of the...
This is interesting news, and I don't think a lot of people are saying like it's propaganda. But considering what's going on, I wouldn't be surprised. So let me switch over here. They always have so many ads and stuff. So many pop-ups. All right, so first we'll start with the U.S. Make this bigger for you. Earthquakes have been rattling the grounds near a mysterious military testing range known for stockpiling nuclear weapons. The Tonopah Test Range in Nevada, also called Area 52, has seen over 100 seismic events in the last week alone. Now, if you watch people like Stefan Burns, who I basically bring up in every, I've noticed, I bring him up in every live stream somehow, but he tracks this stuff, and there's, all that stuff is picking up, right? So the sun charges the earth, and the earth has more earthquakes and more storms and that kind of stuff. And a lot of times this stuff, can be equated to that technically. But in this case, the timing is very strange, and the location makes it very strange too. So a lot of people are wondering if there is some testing being done, right? According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the latest spate of quakes began on Sunday afternoon and continued through the early hours of Monday morning. One of the latest tremors was a magnitude 3.9, which can be felt by the average person on the ground. And people know that we're talking about upping our stockpile, adding more warheads, increasing our power. So, and we know that all the treaties that prevented or said that we should not be testing have expired or been pulled out from. So, are we in a situation where we're back in a nuclear arms race? Might look that way. And then we come over here, and I kind of brought this up before. That looks really... Hey, if you need like a neck pillow, there you go. Is he gonna let me hide that? It won't. Let me see if I can shrink that down. So there's supposedly there's some stuff going around showing that there was this earthquake, and people are saying it was like a nuclear test in Iran. This is not the first time that this has been brought up. There have been earthquakes that happened, and they didn't have aftershocks and looked very strange on the seismograph. So is this another situation where they're testing and we're testing and we're at war? Not good. But looks like it might be that way. And someone told me too, who's more familiar with the nuclear stuff, that they could be testing pieces of a nuke, not necessarily like doing a full-blown, reaction, but they could be testing like the blast caps and different pieces of the missile and the warhead and that kind of thing, and exploding that too. So, but a 4.3, and the other one I think was a 3.9. I'm not sure how big you would expect an earthquake to be. Let's look that up. How big would a nuke earthquake be? I'm just curious if it would be higher or lower than this. Let's see. A nuclear-induced earthquake would be relatively small, likely in the magnitude 5 to 6 range, even for a very large device. So this 3.9 and this 4.3 are well within that range of like a small to medium-sized detonation. So very interesting. I just wanted to bring that up and let you know that that kind of stuff is going on. I mean, it's not confirmed that they're testing nukes, but obviously everyone's very suspicious, especially considering the state of the world right now.
By torpedo since World War II. Back at the hospital in Gaul, the arrival of more than 80 bodies recovered from the water. Nearby facilities were cleared to accommodate the dead. Iran's ambassador to Sri Lanka told Al Jazeera the remains of the sailors will be repatriated. The grim task of dealing with the dead. But for many of those involved in this incident, lots of questions remain to be answered. Mina Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Gaul, southern Sri Lanka.
In the United States.
Hey, thanks everyone for all the gifted memberships. Roger Lane, East Coast. Always good to see, sharing the love. I mean, you guys have no idea how much the support not only obviously helps us feed our family and that kind of stuff and take care of ourselves, but just I've been in these streams before and received a membership from someone else, like one of these gifted memberships, and then I spent more time as a member on a channel, and then I really liked it, and then I became a full-time member. So I think it's a really good way for people to kind of test out some of the things. And Sarah Bryan, thanks for the super chat. Good evening, Matt. Happy to see you here. I'm getting very educated. It's hard to know. I'm an old lady. You know what? You have all the wisdom. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you could teach us by far. Jackson Whitehead, thanks for the super. Is this World War III? Yes, but most people think World War III means the end of the world, or World War III means like a World War II type setup where you have all these, millions of people dying and that kind of thing, which technically Ukraine and Russia might be, if depending on which numbers you believe. But I think this is World War III has been going on for a while, and I think that this is just an escalation of World War III. But a lot of World War III now is modern, so it's trade. Well, I don't know if trade would technically be part of it, but financial stuff, hacking, knocking out each other's infrastructure, like the BRICS nations trying to get rid of the U.S. dollar, right? Like it's an asymmetric warfare. But I strongly believe we've been in World War III for a while. And Ukraine is basically our proxy fighting Russia. And then Iran. Israel is basically our proxy fighting Iran. And, if China invades, same type of situation. So I would say yes. Now, can it get much worse than this? Of course, it can get much, much worse, and it might. But East Coast looks like it gifted 10 more memberships. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. William, thanks for the super chat. The munitions and tech we own that has not been used yet speaks volumes. The loss of F-15Es seems suspicious, all the way back to our civilian contractors. I don't disagree. I think that... So the first 3, which was in Kuwait, seems like it... Well, actually, that was, I think, officially investigated. And it was a Kuwaiti fighter jet who... I don't know, like he said, he mistaken them for something. I don't know how you mistake 2 of those friendlies, right? They're friendly F-15s, but he shot all 3 of them. So he took down 3 of those F-15s with his Kuwaiti fighter jet. So that one, I think, was official. And then this last one, supposedly, let me see what's happening over here. This last one, where they supposedly said he got shot down in Iran. Some people are saying that that's not confirmed and it wasn't official, but that one seems like it was, like a missile defense or something. So that one makes more sense to me. Shannon Brown, thanks for the super. Thanks for your coverage. All right, awesome. I think we got them all. Let me see. Let's see if there's any updates. Like I said, the news has been slow, mostly because they're censoring everything. Let's see, more explosions in Iran, in Tehran specifically. And these look like, these are large bomber explosions. These aren't Let's see. Yeah, it looks like maybe the B-52s are back at it again, dropping like clusters of large bombs. And then I think the B-2s are doing bunker busters as well. The United States and Venezuela's interim authorities have agreed to reestablish diplomatic and consular relations, the U.S. Department of State said in a statement earlier today. And I saw something, I think it was the president of Venezuela, or the vice president, someone. They were basically praising Trump and saying how great things were. So I don't know if they're scared now or if they're on board. But we also got a ton of oil from them. And supposedly I saw a post, I'm not sure if it's valid or not. Excuse me, if it's valid or not. But it was showing a bunch of gold that we supposedly got from them as well. So kind of interesting. But let's see, is there anything else interesting? It says Arab media have reported the execution of IRGC Special Forces General Ismail Khani for espionage on behalf of Mossad. So they're basically saying that this general was working for Mossad. Very interesting. Huh. Yeah. Now, we know that there was security forces that were basically like the head of the security force and the president of Iran were talking about, trying to do a bunch of intelligence, and apparently like 20 or so of the guys in that agency or that setup were basically found out to be Mossad, and then the head of all of it was Mossad. So they've definitely infiltrated, even like, leadership positions and everything. I don't know how you would do that. I don't know if that takes, several years and decades or whatever, but they're doing it. They're doing it well. So, and we know that they were hacked into the streets, and they were looking at the cameras and stuff that are all around, and that's how they could see the movements of the leaders. That's how they knew where Khamenei was. So their level of sophistication for surveillance, especially, but also hacking and getting into different systems, is probably some of the best in the world.
Anyway, then perhaps it is better for us to stop supplies ourselves now.
Kirill Dmitriev, head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, is blaming Europe for what he called short-sighted decisions. He's the one leading talks on removing sanctions imposed on Russia.
The Middle East crisis could end up improving Russia's positions at talks on ending the war in Ukraine and lifting sanctions, now that Europe and other importers may be more interested in seeing Russian resources make a comeback. Dmitry Medvedenko, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
Caught the music. Nice try, though. This is a good question. Let me do this poll here really quick. So previous poll, is Hegseth doing a good job? 14% say yes. Wow, that's a lot lower than I expected. 67% says no, 19% too early to know. I'd be curious if you guys want to share in chat why you think it's so low. Yeah, the man with no name. These late nights, I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out like a schedule, like a regular schedule I can do. And I'm not sure if it's going to still be this late or not. But once I get that nailed down, I'll probably announce it. But I'm going to try and make it so it's predictable. Because I know some nights I'll go on at like 7 or 8. Other nights it's at 9 or 10. I've had a few where I went on at like midnight. So I obviously don't want people sitting around waiting and that kind of stuff if I'm going to be super late. So I will try and make that consistent so you guys have an easier way to know what the schedule is going to be. All right. The question is, will there be a false flag in the U.S.? Some kind of false flag attack to ramp things up and get more people against Iran and our adversaries. And I will be right back.
I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot.
Trump reportedly says he did not approve the cost.
As DHS Secretary, Noem also oversaw the brutal immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, in which federal agents killed 2 American citizens. And she was criticized for allegedly slowing the arrival of federal help to deadly flooding in Texas. As for her successor to lead DHS, Trump has selected the Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. Republicans lined up to congratulate him on Thursday, and a few Democrats said he was at least an improvement.
Kristi Noem is gone. Good riddance. She was a disaster. And
Mullen will need Senate approval to be confirmed and will likely secure it in the Republican-controlled Congress. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Russia and Ukraine are exchanging some 500 prisoners of war each. The first groups of 200 have already arrived back home. More are expected later this Friday. The United States and the United Arab Emirates mediated that swap. Well, votes are being counted in Nepal after Thursday's general election. Millions turned out to vote in the first poll since youth-led protests toppled the government last year. Tony Cheng reports from Kathmandu.
Tight security in Kathmandu as voting gets underway. Across Nepal, 300,000 additional security personnel have been drafted in. But inside the voting booths, things appear to be going smoothly. These elections weren't supposed to happen for several years, but youth-led protests in September forced the government to step down.
After the Gen Z protest last year, we realized that if we don't vote, there won't be change.
I voted so that I can have a meal cooked by my mother at home, and so that young people like me don't have to apply for jobs abroad.
Elsewhere in the capital, the interim Prime Minister cast her vote. These elections mark the end of a caretaker administration designed to deliver a free and fair poll. And waiting in the wings, the man who could take her place. Balendra Shah, a former rapper and mayor of Kathmandu. Much of the campaigning happened on social media, and traditional parties struggled to adapt. But this enigmatic celebrity appears to have caught voters' imagination. With polling stations across this mountainous Himalayan nation, it'll take days to count the ballots. But indications of a winner should be known within 24 to 48 hours. And that could be an ominous sign for established political powers. Nepal is a country rooted in tradition, but there's also a feeling here that those traditions aren't really working. It's what forced tens of thousands of people out onto the streets to protest 6 months ago, and what's forcing millions of people out of the country to earn a living. And it's that desire for change that's pushing them towards the polls today. Tony Cheng, Al Jazeera, Kathmandu.
Well, drought has pushed Kenya deep into a hunger crisis. More than 3 million people don't have enough to eat. Over 800,000 children are malnourished as families struggle to feed themselves. Catherine Sawyer reports from Turkana in northern Kenya.
Every time there's a drought in Turkana, families turn to wild fruits and berries to survive. But now the dry spells are coming more often and lasting longer. Akal Loyet says she's not had a proper meal in 2 weeks. The fruit mixture keeps hunger away, but it carries almost no nutritional value.
If it doesn't rain, trees and leaves dry up. There's no water. The clinics are too far. We have to walk far to get any help.
Villages are slowly emptying. Male herders, usually the providers for their families, have moved to neighboring counties in search of pasture and water for their dying livestock. Only the elderly, women, young children, and the weakest animals remain in the homesteads.
I try to look for food. Sometimes it's not there. If I can't find food, how do I survive?
The government's disaster management teams and other aid agencies are distributing water and food, but supplies are stretched thin, and getting aid to those who need it most is near impossible in some areas.
From one village to another village is almost 300 kilometers. Where you look at, we have pastoralists who are living inside the hills, getting water, getting food. It is very tough.
People in this village are lucky to receive treatment from a mobile clinic. Some children show signs of being malnourished.
Now they have gotten their food, but now they have to walk back home, sometimes kilometers away, and they say that this is not enough. They don't know the last time that they got this food, and they don't know when the aid workers are going to come back. So they say that they are worried that if they do not get help, things are just going to get worse.
Neighboring countries like Somalia and Ethiopia are also facing drought and water shortages and high levels of malnutrition. It's rainy season in Kenya, but in places like Turkana, the clouds often pass without relief. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Turkana, northern Kenya.
Well, it's 5 o'clock GMT. I'm Scott McLean, and you are watching Al Jazeera's live, extensive coverage of the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. The Israeli military says it started a broad-scale wave of strikes against Iranian infrastructure in the capital, Tehran. Among the sites targeted was a military academy belonging to Iran's army. The cities of Isfahan and Kermanshah have also been hit. State media say more than 1,200 people have been...
I'm not sure if that music counts, so just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off for a second here. Do you want to... do we want to keep watching Al Jazeera, or do we want to switch over to Fox Live now? I'll do a vote. I'll do an official vote. So this previous poll, will there be a false flag? 76% say yes. So if there is a false flag, what are we thinking? Because obviously we've had the attacks in the past, like obviously 9/11, and we've had terror attacks like in where was that at? Mardi Gras. You know, running people over with trucks. Obviously shootings. So what kind of stuff you think is going to happen? There we go. I just put... Oh, you didn't get a vote. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just put a new one up. Oh, I hope not Dirty Bomb. Dual Helix, that would be worst case scenario. And I know we had a scare about that. Remember all the Jersey drones? Which, interestingly, there's some people that say those were put up because there were some orbs. Some like alien drones spotted, or alien spaceships spotted. And that they put all of those drones up to distract from that. I've heard that from several places. All right, let's see what we have in our poll. Still Al Jazeera. Okay. So we will stay.
Waves of which was felt here in the bureau of Al Jazeera. But if speaking of what took place, I'm not sure, but if you can see behind me on my right, there is this column of huge thick smoke rising into the air, and that is just one of the strikes within the campaign of airstrikes conducted by the Israelis and Americans over the past few hours. We heard massive sounds of explosion from the eastern and southeastern of the Iranian capital, Tehran, and of course from other cities. And then getting back to Tehran, I can explain more about the casualties, seeing that now they're saying that one or two military headquarters are again targeted, but it is not limited to that. They're saying that civilians, specifically residential areas, parking, as well as gas stations, several residential buildings were demolished in the recent wave of strikes in different neighborhoods, specifically in downtown and southeastern neighborhoods of the Iranian capital. And in the broader context, we know that from cities of Shiraz, Isfahan, Kermanshah, we have been receiving constant reports showing the continuation of these strikes across the country, and casualties remain gravely feared. Last report, the last statistics that we have indicates that at least 1,300 people have been killed, but this is not the recent one. And when I say recent, I mean for the past few hours. The report comes from yesterday. So seeing the continuous nature of these strikes, there is this possibility, as a matter of misfortune, for these numbers to grow further and further. And of course, on the other hand, the Iranian side is saying it's continuing its retaliatory strikes. In a letter to United Nations Security Council and the Secretary General, Iran and the representative of Iran at the United Nations condemned this, and also said that it considers it as its right to respond to these aggressions. And of course, it urged the United Nations to ask the United States and Israelis to halt their strikes targeting different places, schools, hospitals, and ordinary citizens across the country. And of course, from the military side, we are receiving nothing indicating de-escalation. They are saying that they are continuing their retaliatory strikes, the 21st wave of which is set to be conducted, targeting, based on the statement from IRGC statement, the heart of Tel Aviv with hypersonic missiles. So diplomatically speaking, also Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi recently said that the country has not requested for any negotiation or ceasefire, seeing the ongoing nature of these strikes. Right now, if I want to sum it up, this is nothing but escalation that we see as a reality on the ground.
Okay, so as we watch the smoke there rising over your left shoulder in the background of your shot, Tawhid, let me ask you about where people are finding shelter. I understand that most people, or at least a lot of people in Tehran, have left the city. But for those who are staying put, where are they going? Are they going underground? And again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there is still an internet blackout in Iran right now. And so given that that's the case, is the government warning people on their phones of incoming strikes or not?
No, there is no such a warning just ahead of these strikes. We don't see such a thing, and telecommunication disruptions still go on. But speaking of Tehran, we know that the province Tehran, in which the city of Tehran, the capital, has been located, is housed to roughly 14 million people, and they are being impacted by these strikes. No, that much of something that I can call shelter, seeing this huge number of population. We know that a considerable proportion of the capital residents have decided to evacuate the city from the early hours of the initiation of these strikes last week. But still, what I can see is that the city is not fully evacuated. There are many, and I would say another considerable proportion of the residents is still living in the city. And let's keep in mind, we're not talking about numbers, we're talking about very ordinary citizens who are being targeted now on an hourly basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, Tawhid Asadi for us there in Tehran. I also want to tell you about the situation in Lebanon. Hezbollah has warned Israeli residents to evacuate towns within 5 kilometers of the border. We have a message that they've posted on their Telegram channel. In it, the group says, your military's aggression against Lebanese sovereignty and safe citizens, the destruction of civilian infrastructure, and the expulsion campaign it is carrying out will not go unchallenged. We also have these live pictures from the Beirut skyline, where you can see there are at least 3 fires burning in the aftermath of these Israeli strikes there that have been taking place throughout the course of the night. Of course, there are also Israeli troops on the ground in southern Lebanon. All of this is causing mass displacement across the country, and particularly in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. And that is where we're going to cross over live to Zaina Hutter, who is standing by for us. So Zaina, can you just show us where you are right now and what are you seeing?
Well, day 5 of the latest confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah, and it is only escalating, and the humanitarian crisis is growing. You drive around the capital and you see this almost in every street corner. People seeking shelter on the side of the roads. There aren't enough schools, public schools, to shelter the hundreds of thousands of people who were forced to flee their homes, neighborhoods where they lived and worked. People here are telling us we are not animals, we are human beings. Our children, are cold. We were not able to escape with more than the clothes on our back with a few blankets. So they're appealing for international assistance. The Lebanese government has opened a number of shelters, but following yesterday's evacuation order for the entirety of the southern suburbs, the government is struggling. It has told people to head north, to the north of the country, but people here do not have the means of transport. It's not just Lebanese who live in Beirut's southern suburbs, as well Syrian refugees, Palestinian refugees. There's a Palestinian camp in that area, the Burj al-Barajni Palestinian camp. So these people do not have the means, for example, to reach to the north of the country. The government is also going to be opening stadiums. And this is a cash-strapped state, a nearly bankrupt state, which has not been able to deal with an economic crisis that began in 2019. Some people here are telling me that they're sick and they cannot stay in the cold. And just look at the children. They left with nothing. And people are worried that this conflict is not going to end anytime soon. A lot of people are daily wage earners. If they do not work today, they cannot put food on the table tonight.
Yeah, Zainab, this is absolutely heartbreaking pictures to watch. It looks quite cold where you are as well. I wonder how long these people are expecting to stay. And also, you talk about the worry that people have. I know that there have been efforts, say, from the Lebanese president to try to get the United States to step in to stop Israel from continuing.
So we have that Poseidon that's hunting for subs. We have that heading back to that general area. So it is starting to go along that coastline, and it may work its way back down, but it's going to be checking this whole area. I'm assuming the entire west coast and north of Egypt and everything is going to be doing its little patterns, looking for any signs of nuclear radiation coming from any possible nuclear subs that might be down there. And I'm not sure if they can look for other types of subs too, but definitely interested to see what this does. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to take to get over there, but it's gone quite a ways. It'll last like 20 minutes, so we should probably see it doing patterns here shortly.
Hostilities, but how much influence does France really have? We know that Israel does not want France involved in any negotiations that involve Lebanon and Israel. They've been trying to remove France from the framework of the political negotiations, which began a few weeks ago, but did not reach any progress. What Israel wants is two things: Hezbollah to disarm and Lebanon to agree to direct political negotiations. The Hezbollah statement you mentioned earlier is yet another message from the group, a sign of defiance. When Israel really stepped up its military campaign by ordering the southern suburbs of Beirut to be empty of residents, by ordering the people south of the Litani to leave their homes, this came 24 hours or less than 24 hours after Hezbollah's Secretary General Naim Qassem appeared on television and said Hezbollah will not surrender and that they will confront what he called the Israeli and U.S. aggression. So Israel is trying to do two things right now. Yes, this is part of a military campaign against Hezbollah. It's also psychological war. It is putting pressure on the people in the hope that Hezbollah will give in. But at the same time, it is also trying to weaken Hezbollah enough for the Lebanese army, the Lebanese state to step in. But the question is, doing that, if the Lebanese government does that, then it risks internal conflict.
Zainab, quickly, how long are these people planning to stay there given all of this?
Well, the government, like I said, is going to start to open stadiums to house people. They're going to have to wait to see which shelter they can go to receive help. But like I said, these are Syrian. Some of them are Syrian refugees, and it's very difficult for them to get access to some areas. It's at the end of the day, the government is unable to deal with this crisis. Hundreds of thousands just from Beirut's southern suburbs alone, and we can't forget the east of the the country. Late yesterday, the Israeli military issued evacuation orders for 3 villages in the Baalbek Bekaa region. And we are expecting more of these forced evacuation orders to be issued as added pressure. So you're talking about the east of the country, Beirut, the south of the country. This is a tiny nation. And I think we also have to point out that this is a very much a deeply divided and polarized society and country where sectarian tensions have always been high. When you move people, a community from one area to another, you also risk internal instability. So you have all these layers in this conflict. This is not just about airstrikes targeting buildings, leveling them to the ground. Back in late 2024, the Israeli military destroyed 400 buildings in Beirut's southern suburbs. There are thousands of buildings there. So all this pressure, and then you see this, and a government that is unable really to step in to deal with a crisis that's going to require the help of the international community.
Yeah, people out on the streets in the midst of the cold there in Beirut. Zaina Hodor, please keep us posted on the situation there. We are also, of course, monitoring developments from Israel. That is where Rory Challenge, that's what Rory Challenge is focusing on from the Jordanian capital of Amman. He has this report on the latest Iranian strikes on Tel Aviv, a number of which broke through the missile defense systems.
Well, look, any air defense system, as competent and as good as it is, and as layered as it is, there is always going to be stuff that gets through. The Israelis know that. And when you have as many rockets being launched at Israeli towns and cities as Iran has been doing over the last 5 days, then yes, there will be some getting through. There was what the IRGC, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, called Wave 21 of its retaliatory operation. It launched that earlier on this evening, and it said that this was a combined drone and missile attack. It specifically said that included in that attack package there was a cluster munition, and we saw visual evidence of that with people filming the cluster, a star.
Assuming this is correct, this is saying that this right here is the carrier strike group. It says there's 8 vessels there. So they're quite a ways away. And I think they backed up another 100 kilometers because there were some rumors that went around that said that either they got hit by some drones or some drones came very close and got intercepted. So they moved back from where they were. But you can see, like, they're a pretty good distance. And there's another one. I thought there was another one. I don't know if it's down here or what, but there's 2 of them. So they're getting lit up from multiple angles. Someone said earlier that the subs were not much to worry about. One of our subs, like, actually, let me pull this up. One of our submarines. So we can find the one I'm looking for. Yeah, like our Virginia class. So, I mean, they're holding, dozens of nuclear warheads that could basically flatten an entire country. And they're just whispering, quiet, silent but deadly, like some of you say. And they're undetectable in most cases, and they can just surface and fire off a bunch of missiles and injure your country pretty quick. So they're kind of the backup system. If the Stratcom and those kind of places in the U.S. get taken out and all is lost, then the subs can still finish the mission, basically. Obviously, the homeland would be gone, but they can keep going. And I don't know why I can't find any of these. Here we go. Just let me open this up. There we go. So this one here, like, this is the Ohio class. So this has the cruise missiles, and I mean, they're very, very deadly, and they have torpedoes. And since they're nuclear powered, they can stay out for long periods of time on long missions. Hypersonic missiles. I mean, this thing right here is a world ender. And I'm not sure, how many do we have? How many nuclear subs in U.S.? Officially, it says we have 69 to 71 of these, which is insane. And it looks like we have 14 ballistic missiles, or 14 ballistic missile subs, I should say, and 53 fast attack. What about Russia? Russia has 60 to 65. It doesn't break down numbers, but let's see, or does it? Let's see, 12 to 16. It looks like they have 12 to 16 nuclear-powered ballistic subs, so we're almost on par. We're about on par with each other on that. And I saw something today that North Korea has a new Navy vessel. Let's see if it shows it. They have this new warship. Remember the last one? I don't know if you saw it or not, but they like had it set up and it was ready to launch, and they launched it, and it just like it basically just wiped out and was gone and sunk. I'm seeing some warnings, like I'm not hearing them. We just had some incoming drones going into northern Israel. I don't know what the audio issue is. It's Bluetooth, so I wonder if I need to restart my iPad or something. But we have more drones and rockets and stuff coming into northern Israel. Okay. See if I can find a picture of this. So this thing right here. So North Korea has actually been stepping it up quite a bit, besides the one that they launched and it sunk immediately. But this is the new one. And the thing that's cool about this setup is when they launch, typically it's going to be the force of the actual missile itself and its propulsion that makes it leave and take off. This one uses some kind of like gas powered, almost like compressed air to initially fire it up. And then once it's in the air, then it ignites and takes off with its own propulsion. But it helps save damage to the ship and damage to the launching tubes and that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty smart idea. I'm not sure if we have anything like that, but yeah, just want to show that's kind of cool.
Air defenses underway, a base in Bahrain on fire. Iranian TV reports saying that the U.S. base at the Zayed airport was their target, and they say it was hit multiple times. But the UAE says it thwarted multiple hostile attacks in several areas across the country.
Looks like that Poseidon is turned its transponder off. So it flew across the Mediterranean, and it was over here near Cairo, and then it turned off. So we might see it pop up again. Maybe it'll do some patterns and start looking for some subs over here, and then it'll turn its transponder back on possibly. So I'll keep watching for that.
In the last week.
All right, Zane, we appreciate the update. Please keep us posted. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump says he aims to take unprecedented action against Iran and wants to help decide who leads the country. That's as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says U.S. forces will ramp up attacks in the coming days. John Hendren now from Washington, D.C.
From the White House, the U.S. president describes Iranian forces as depleted, demoralized, all but defeated.
Missiles are gone, launches are gone. They're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal? I said, you're being a little bit late.
From the U.S. Central Command in Florida, the defense secretary describes a U.S. military that is ramping up, not down.
We have only just begun to fight. If you think you've seen something, just wait.
Ending with this warning.
The amount of firepower over Iran and over Tehran is about to surge dramatically.
Admiral Brad Cooper, head of the U.S. Central Command, said American B-2...
There's also a Poseidon searching for subs over between Taiwan and Japan. I'm not sure why, when it looks all broken up like this, I'm not sure if that's like a like bad data or something in the GPS, but typically they're going to do loops. That's interesting as well, considering that some people are worried about China. It looks like these are part of its pattern too. So it's been flying all around the islands. But with Russia and China seeing this as a weakness in the U.S. because we're preoccupied, a lot of people think that something might go down with China and Taiwan.
While it's the first time some countries have come under drone attack, the technology has been used on the battlefield in Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion began 4 years ago. Now, Ukrainians, though, may have found the answer to how to combat them. Audrey McAlpine reports now from Kyiv.
The Iranian-made drones that reshaped the war in Ukraine appearing in the Gulf, evading air defenses in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, showing how this weapon is moving beyond a single conflict. Years of deployment by both Russia and Ukraine have refined the technology and driven up production.
This is a Shahed-style drone. Iran developed the design and is believed to have tens of thousands of these drones. Each one cost about $50,000 to produce, but shooting them down can be even more expensive, given that some interceptor missiles cost over $1 million. Russia regularly launches hundreds of these drones into Ukraine in a single night, which is why Ukrainians are working on cheaper ways of intercepting them.
I think there is no country else that is more prepared for this than us and that has as much expertise as us.
Here at the Skyfall Academy, they're training Ukraine's military how to use interceptor drones, one of the ways that Ukraine is fighting against Shahed-style drones. And after 4 years of war, it's just another example of how Ukraine has become a leader in drone and anti-drone warfare.
It's just much more cost-effective and easy to deploy and really easy to do it in the mass production.
The Ukrainian government hopes solutions like these could eventually be exported to Gulf countries or even exchanged for interceptor missiles.
What do you think that the world has to learn from Ukraine right now, given what's happening in the Middle East?
I believe that they have to understand that the interceptor drones are part of the defense strategy of every country, and it has to be implemented right now.
In a world where drones are rewriting the rules of war, Ukraine is emerging as a leader in drone defense and interception. Audrey McAlpine, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
Well, France's President Emmanuel Macron says the government is ready to send armored vehicles to Lebanon. Macron urged Hezbollah to stop attacking Israel and called on both Israel and Iran not to involve Lebanon further in the war. France has also authorized U.S. forces to use one.
Latest update from Flight Radar 24, which is the one you see on the screen right now. More than 11,000 flights scheduled to take off from the major airports in the Middle East have been canceled due to the war with Iran. 11,000 flights. They're doing their little break. Let's see.
We're following at this hour. Kristi Noem is out as Trump's Homeland Security Secretary. Noem had a controversial tenure leading DHS. That's the large federal agency that oversees border security. Al Jazeera's Heidi Jo Castro has more.
Kristi Noem was on stage in Tennessee when President Trump announced her firing over social media, writing that Noem will be moving to be special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. More details on the newly created position, Trump said, would be coming this weekend. On X, Noem responded, saying she looked forward to dismantling cartels and building on earlier accomplishments like securing the border. While leading DHS, Noem traveled the world touting Trump's immigration policies, including a visit to an El Salvador prison where she used prisoners as props. She extolled the president in public, and he seemed happy to keep her in the spotlight.
I'm Kristi Noem, from the Cowboys Who Tamed the West.
Until this $220 million ad campaign starring and overseen by Noem. Earlier this week, Noem took heated questions from Republicans about whether Trump approved the cost.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be
helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
well, they were
overwhelmingly
effective in your name recognition. I mean, I personally just, I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot.
Trump reportedly says he did not approve the cost. As DHS Secretary, Noem also oversaw the brutal immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, in which federal agents killed 2 American citizens. And she was criticized for allegedly slowing the arrival of federal help to deadly flooding in Texas. As for her successor to lead DHS, Trump has selected the Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. Republicans lined up to congratulate him on Thursday, and a few Democrats said he was at least an improvement.
Kristi Noem is gone. Good riddance. She was a disaster.
Mullen will need Senate approval to be confirmed and will likely secure it in the Republican-controlled Congress. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Votes are being counted in Nepal after Thursday's general election. Millions turned out to vote in the first poll since youth-led protests toppled the government last year. Tony Cheng reports now from Kathmandu.
Tight security in Kathmandu as voting gets underway. Across Nepal, 300,000 additional security personnel have been drafted in. But inside the voting booths, things appear to be going smoothly. These elections weren't supposed to happen for several years, but youth-led protests in September forced the government to step down.
After the Gen Z protest last year, we realized that if we don't vote, there won't be change.
I voted so that I can have a meal cooked by my mother at home, and so that young people like me don't have to apply for jobs abroad.
Elsewhere in the capital, the interim Prime Minister cast her vote. These elections mark the end of a caretaker administration designed to deliver a free and fair poll. And waiting in the wings, the man who could take her place. Balendra Shah, a former rapper and mayor of Kathmandu. Much of the campaigning happened on social media, and traditional parties struggled to adapt. But this enigmatic celebrity appears to have caught voters' imagination. With polling stations across this mountainous Himalayan nation, it'll take days to count the ballots. But indications of a winner should be known within 24 to 48 hours. And that could be an ominous sign for established political powers.
Nepal is a country rooted in tradition, but there's also a feeling here that those traditions aren't really working. It's what forced tens of thousands of people out onto the streets to protest 6 months ago, and what's forcing millions of people out of the country to earn a living. And it's that desire for change that's pushing.
I'm going to do one last check and see if there's anything else new coming in. I don't see any attacks or anything happening. There's absolutely nothing coming out. At least on X and Telegram or those sites. Let me see if, I mean, I'll check mainstream media, but I'm not sure if there's a lot of validation there sometimes. Latest updates. Let's look and see what they have. They talked about the latest strikes in Lebanon. We knew about that. That is it. So, yeah. Iran's getting hit. They're hitting some other people. They've slowed down. The amount of missiles and drones that they're sending out has decreased by like 80-some percent, 86%, I believe. So the attacks on their launchers and the sites that they're launching from is being effective so far. I don't know if Iran has another trick up their sleeve. I guess we'll find out. But they seem to be extremely confident. So I'm thinking they have something. Hopefully it's not a nuke. Especially based on that earthquake that we saw. But, yeah, everything I'm looking at, I don't see any major updates, no major changes. Yeah, so I think I do have to get up early tomorrow. Usually I would go past midnight, but me and the kids are going to do like an art day with their school and a bunch of other schools. So it's going to be an all-day parent and kid thing. And I'll probably be up at 6 a.m. So I appreciate everyone being here. Thanks for all the super chats, memberships. Memberships were crazy today. Like, let's see, I lost count. There were so many. Roger Lane says he's going to get in trouble with his bank for making so many. So Make sure you guys show some love. Put some hearts or some thumbs ups or something, or thanks in the chat for Roger. And Sarah Bryan, thanks for that super. And I think we got them all. Make sure I don't miss any. Yep, looks good there. And as always, make sure you guys like, subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. And you can support the channel. There's links down in the description. But most likely tomorrow evening will be my next stream. And I might go a little bit earlier. I'm going to try a little, like maybe a couple hours earlier tomorrow. But I don't like to run into Baron and Candace. But obviously, Baron typically goes till like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock sometimes. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. And I hope everyone gets a good night's sleep. And we'll see you on the next one.